Did you know that Earl Grey tea is named after a former Prime Minister of England, Charles Grey? Today, we'll be looking at black tea. My favorite black tea is Irish breakfast. Black tea is actually relatively new in the tea realm. It was only developed in the 17th century. Now, this fact blew my mind because tea in America is primarily black tea. To think that it's a baby in the world of tea was very interesting. The first black tea that was developed was called Lapsang Souchong in the 17th century in the Fujian province on Mount Wuyi. Legend has it that a Chinese army was coming through Mount Wuyi and stayed at the tea factory to camp out. Now, tea production was happening, and so the tea factory workers took the tea out of the factory so that the soldiers could stay in the factory while they were there. When they finally left, the tea workers were now behind schedule on tea production, and so when they brought the tea back in, they accelerated the drying process by drying them over pine wood. Now, it's the pine wood that gives Lapsang Souchong its smoky flavor, and that's the legend. The reality may be a little more straightforward. It is more likely that during the tea trade, traders were trying to find a tea that wouldn't lose its flavor by the time it made it to the West. Green tea lost significant amounts of flavor and wouldn't taste very good when it finally made it west. Black tea was a good solution to that problem. Now, when the British and the Dutch traders came over, they bought black tea. However, in China, black tea is called red tea. It is not called black tea. Dutch and British traders brought it west, and it is now black tea for us. It was sold in pharmacies, and it was more of a medicinal beverage, and it was also very expensive. So it was only for the upper class and for the elite to drink, who could afford it. It became especially popular with the royal family. In 1662, Princess Catherine introduced the royal family to Lapsang Souchong, and it quickly became known as the royal black tea. A couple hundred years later, in 1840, Duchess Anna Telford developed afternoon tea. So as you can see, England has quite embraced black tea. So much so that when Sir Patrick Stewart was asked what beverage his character Captain Picard should drink, he suggested Lapsang Souchong. However, the producers of the show didn't think the audience would know what that was, and so his character drank Earl Grey instead. Now, tea became very popular in England and of course made its way into the Americas. I think most Americans know about the Boston Tea Party and know that a bunch of tea was thrown into the harbor after tea had become taxed. Just to give you an idea as to how much tea was thrown into the harbor, it was roughly around $1 million of tea. In today's standards, there were 265 chests of black tea and 75 chests of green tea that were thrown into the harbor. Of those black tea, one was called Buyi. Now, Buyi is kind of named after Mount Wuyi, where Lapsang Souchong was discovered. It was such a popular tea that Buyi became slang for tea at the time. In America today, black tea is still the most popular tea. Of all the tea that Americans consume, 84% of it is black. But what is black tea? Black tea is a true tea, meaning it comes from the Camellia sinensis plant. It is processed by taking the leaves and allowing them to wilt. The wilting induces a protein breakdown and water reduction. Now, after the leaves wilt, they are crinkled and smushed to open up the leaves for a chemical reaction with the air. This is called oxidation. Now, after the leaves are allowed to oxidize, they are then dried, and you have black tea. Today, we're going to make Lapsang Souchong. To brew black tea, you'll want to get your water to 212 degrees, which is boiling. Black tea can handle boiling temperatures just fine. Then you'll want to steep your leaves for 3 minutes. Now, black tea can be blended with all sorts of different fruits and herbs and spices like ginger or lemon or mango or berries or different flowers. For example, Earl Grey is blended with bergamot to give it its unique flavor. In my opinion, black tea goes with everything. But black tea goes especially well with different sorts of meats like beef or lamb, or different pastas like lasagna. Now, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the benefits of black tea, but I do want to say that it is caffeinated and it does inhibit iron absorption. So be careful if you're anemic or on iron pills. I hope you learned a little today, and don't forget, the best tea is the one you like. 3, 2, 1. It was so popular. Okay, now we'll start for real. Today, okay, I gotta stop smiling so much. That was terrible. It became known as what beverage his captain. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Okay. Personally, I think that Lapsang Souchong is kind of a weak colored tea, and it wasn't very satisfying to watch steep. So I've also steeped Emperor's Bride, which is a very dark black tea, so you can watch that one steep in fast motion as well. You're welcome.